Good morning, everyone. So nice to be here with you. So yes, as Kyle mentioned and Kristen, we are going to be doing something maybe a little bit different than what you might be used to. For instead of just talking to you and sharing that way, I wanted to create something experiential for you today that will move us hopefully into that state that you all know and love: calm, clear, centered, compassionate, confident, creative, and courageous self. And when we're in that aspect of mind, when we're in that schema or state, then we have heart coherence, right? So I'm hoping that we will have that experience today, but we're going to do that through a process called the Big Mind, Big Heart. Has anyone heard of it? You could raise your hand. Okay, so this is an interactive experience, and I'm going to need you to be able to type in the chat. So I'm hoping that you're on a device that you will be able to type in. So if you're not, or if you're not familiar with how to do that on the device that you're on, maybe I'll just give you a moment or two to kind of figure out, okay, how can I get into the chat on my phone? How can I get into it on my tablet? That's going to be a really important part of this exercise, is being able to communicate with one another. And something that I've learned, as I'm sure you guys have too, about Zoom, is that you can't have more than one person talking at a time. Like, there's no such thing as Zoom band practice right now, right? Like, it's just not, it's not happening where there can be multiple mics. So the chat has worked really well for this experience. The other thing I'm hoping is that you'd be willing to turn your cameras on so that we can really be together in as much of an embodied way as possible. This is definitely going to be a fully embodied experience. And I can see that there are some folks that are like, what's this going to be about? A little skeptical, maybe, not sure. And that's totally fine, totally welcome. I get it. But my hope is that when it's over, that not only will you have come away with a profound meditative experience, but you'll come away with a really profound and maybe renewed sense of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-compassion. And we know, as practitioners of consciousness, that the more that we cultivate those things for ourselves, understanding, acceptance, compassion, especially awareness, then we have more of that for other people. So we can impart that to others when we know it in ourselves. We have the most access. So that's what this exercise is gonna hopefully aim to bring you. But I wanna share a little bit about it first and kind of how I came to this work. So in the 1980s, there was a psychotherapist. His name is Dr. Richard Schwartz. Anyone heard of Dick? Okay, so Dick was working with some eating disorder clients, and he heard them say things like, there's this part of me that will feel really bad in some way, and shamed, embarrassed, something like that. And this other part of me will then eat for comfort, will like binge on some food. Then this other part of me will feel really guilty about that, and then purge, and then feel shameful about that, and then the cycle starts over again. And so he started to witness that there's this language system that we all use to kind of compartmentalize these different aspects of ourselves, or schemas in some psychological systems, and that each one of these parts has a very specific role or function to play in our totally embodied psycho-emotional, psychophysical being. That each part has a role, each function is important in the system. So that means that every part of us is good and is trying to help us in some way, but they all have this kind of tunnel vision. Now, as I've been studying more neuroscience over the last several years, what I've come to understand about these parts of us is that they are completely embodied ego states. So I'm going to give Daniel Siegel's little model of the brain here, his hand model. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that before, but it's like, this is your brain. And this is kind of this, you know, the cortex, the cerebral cortex. This is where all of the mental activity is taking place. And then in the midbrain, kind of underneath, we have the amygdala, which is the emotional center. And then we have the brain stem, or the spinal cord, the stem here, which is where we have our physiological nervous system responses. So whenever we enter a certain frame of mind or a certain state of being, this is all happening simultaneously. There are certain kinds of cognitive thoughts that are and neurological process that's happening at the level of mind. And simultaneously, there might be emotional states that are being activated. And simultaneously, we're experiencing things in the body. So if anyone has studied any like SE, anyone, somatic experiencing, anything like that? Okay, great. So I know that I'm bringing some new stuff today. That's great. So all of these states and all of these parts of us that are fully embodied, again, they're all good. They all have a role or a function to play, but they can get triggered and they can get activated, and they can create these responses that keep us in like an overly active sympathetic nervous system rhythm, right? We can find ourselves knocked off of that center pretty quickly just by living life. And that certain parts of us have jobs that they have to do. Like there might be a good mom part who really wanted to be here today at the collective, but they have a sick child. And so their good student part or their spiritual seeker part had to take a back seat to the good mom part, right? So there's these alliances that parts can form. There's these hierarchies that they can form, these different states of mind. So I wanted to just read to you a little bit about what I found kind of backs this up scientifically just the other day, which is really exciting. But first, let me just mention again that there is the parts, there are the ego states, and then there is something in the internal family systems model that Dick developed called self, capital S, self. And when we are in that state, we are not in the ego, not in a part. We are actually in the heart. We are in this state that is calm and clear, compassionate, curious, never has assumptions. It's curious, it's calm, it's centered, and it's courageous. It's confident and courageous. To me, confidence is like having the intelligence to know what to do in a moment, and courage is the impulse and to actually take action on that, to actually execute what it is that we're feeling confident about. So all of those things are what we experience when we're in this state of self, which is much closer to what the yogis call the center of consciousness, or what we might call in these kind of terms like the center, the heart center. So our goal of therapy in internal family systems is to shift our identification from these parts in more towards that self. And the more we rest our awareness in that self, the more access we have to the internal resources when we need them, right? So that we can tonify the nervous system, so that we can catch ourselves when we're in maybe a self-defeating behavioral pattern of thought or reaction or belief or behavior. We can catch ourselves, we can take that pause. But here's where I'm going to read what Dan Siegel said, because I just love this. He said, the reason that being aware is so helpful is not just because it allows you to pause between impulse and action, but it drops the energy position into the formless source of all form where other options are sitting and waiting. So when we come into this state of mind called self, it's like we're tapping that field of pure possibility. We're not locked into a singular belief or a singular idea or a singular feeling state. We can witness it, and we not only can take that pause, but we can actually tap into that internal resource that can transform it, and really quickly. So I love that, the formless source of all forms, this like field of untapped potential and so and possibility. So that's what I'm hoping to bring to you today, is an experience of some of these ego states, like a personal direct experience with it, and then also an experience of this calm, clear, centered consciousness that we call self. So before we jump in here, I guess I should tell you how I came to this work. So my psychology mentor, Dr. Tom Holmes, he's been studying internal family systems, with Dick since the 80s. And he went to a conference in the early 90s at Himalayan Institute, where he met, and my teacher has studied kind of equally Zen Buddhism and equally Sufism. So was with Pir Vilayat Inayat Khan for 20 years. He was studied under Thich Nhat Hanh directly for 20 years. And so when this Zen teacher named Genpo Roshi showed up at the Kripalu Institute with this big mind, big heart exercise, Tom was really interested because it looked a lot like what we were doing in IFS, but it was for a group. It wasn't just individual one-on-one therapy. It was a group process. So he went to that event and had an amazing experience. Like 200 people can do this at a time. Everyone's just talking over each other, usually is how it happens. So Tom brought this back. He refined it a little bit through the IFS lens and through, the spiritual lens of compassion, like he calls it the Sufi path of the heart, really brought it to that place. And then I started practicing it with him and started leading it myself, probably maybe around 2008 or 2009. And then when the pandemic hit, I knew that this would be a really valuable exercise for people to engage in, but I didn't know how to do it if we couldn't gather in a group. So I did a couple of test runs with it online, seeing if we could actually access those states if we were to type in the chat instead of voice dialogue, and it worked. And I was so excited. And so Kyle and I had a conversation back in July, and I was like, Kyle, I'm so excited. I just tried it and it worked. Let's do it. Let's do it. So I've done it a couple more times since then. And so, research has been proven more than once. It worked. But what I will tell you about it is that in order for you to have the most meaningful experience, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So the more that you participate, the more you're going to get back. So this is why I wanted to front load with, figure out how to type in the chat, turn your video on if you're willing, because that's how you're going to be able to really fully participate. Okay, I think that's enough of a spiel to get you into this. I think the best way to just do it is to just do it, but I do want to see if there's any questions, comments, or concerns first. So I don't know if you want to unmute yourself or raise your hand or type in the chat. Okay, we got some thumbs up. Are we ready to go?
We're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me when to go, Alanga.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, all right. All right, so if you'll have your chat box open, just kind of in preparation. Natalie just joined us, that's wonderful. Tom's full name is Tom Holmes, and his book is Parts Work, an illustrated guide to your inner life. I can type it in the chat if that's better. So you can copy and paste. Tom Holmes. Boy, I'm glad you guys are the ones typing this morning and not me. And his book is called Parts Work. There it is. Okay. So my book, which I'm so horrible at self-promotion, my book is called Make a Difference and Make a Living Teaching Yoga, The Secret to Transforming Lives While Supporting Yourself. And basically, this was a little bit of a lead magnet title because my primary audience is yoga teachers, but the contents of the book are the introduction to the yoga mindset coaching program, which kind of bridges classical yoga psychology and practice with internal family systems in a coaching capacity. So that's what the guts of this book are. And I typed at the very top of the chat, you'll see, those of you who joined us late, I have my websites there where you can access the book if you are interested in learning more about what we do today. I'll put that stuff in again at the end. All right, friends, so here we go. I know that there might be some skeptical parts or some parts that are like, oh man, I didn't want to have to do anything but sit here this morning. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge whatever is there for you right now and just ask you to be present with that also. So if you want to just close your eyes for a moment and just kind of scan your own field. And when I say field, I mean the field of experience. What's happening at the level of thought, emotion, and sensation for you right now? Just awareness of that. No judgment, not even trying to change it in any way, just aware of whatever's here in this moment. And just let any part of you know that might have any concerns about what we're about to do, that it can jump in whenever it needs to and put a halt in the process if you don't want to do it. But if you are willing to try and just see what happens, you might really have a wonderful experience. Okay, so we're going to start by shifting into a part that most of us have. So I'm going to ask you to just kind of shift your body a little bit. And most of us have a manager part, a part that needs to manage and control things, has to get the task list done. So if you have a part like that, I'd invite you to just bring it forward into your awareness. This manager, controller, task accomplisher part, maybe it's an analyzing part. And just sit for a moment with this part of yourself and tap into some of the things that this part has to do for you. Like, what does it have to do? What does it have to manage? What does it have to control or get done or figure out in life? And then what we're going to do next is just start to type some of those things in the chat. And then I'll reflect back to you, affirming that, yes, that is something that needs to be managed. So please go ahead and type in the chat anything that this manager part of you has to do for you on a daily basis. Yeah, it has to get scheduling done, has to do get the task list checked off, taking care of the kids, running errands, making sure that I'm on time, absolutely. Organizing things, managing the household, supervising employees, working towards goals, cooking dinner, budgeting, paying bills, keeping clean, managing time, communication with people, doing that deep inner soul work, yeah. Taking care of dogs, home repairs, cleaning, all these work responsibilities, management of kids and business, dinner, relationships. Yeah, got to call the family, managing projects, shopping, putting out fires, bringing some fun into life. Yeah, there's a lot of things that this part is doing. Is there anything else it wants to tell us that it has to do? Yeah, mine is a lazy manager. Yeah, sometimes they get tired. That is so true. Building a business and all the tasks that requires, right? So many tasks that we have to manage, so many things. Money, absolutely. Anything else these hardworking managers want to tell us about that they have to do for you? Talking to friends and family, reassuring folks that things will be okay. Yeah, we have to manage our own emotions, absolutely. Managing time to do our healing work, meditate, yoga, Reiki. Self-care, yeah. Managing self-care, especially in the time of COVID, right? Working towards that optimal health. Keeping emotions on level, absolutely. New schooling protocols and homeschool and virtual training. Oh my gosh, yes. So much management around these things. So I'll give the managers one more opportunity to tell us the things they have to do. Preventing anxiety, yeah, managing emotional states. So many platforms, social media and all this stuff, right? So let me just ask your manager parts, because it seems like they have a lot to do and they're working pretty hard. Do you ever get tired? Do you ever feel exhausted or tired from having to manage all this? Go ahead and just let me know. Yeah, so a lot of people are saying yes, a lot of the times. A zillion % get tired, so tired, 100%. So managers, I'm wondering if it sounds like you're working really, really hard and get so tired. So if we close our eyes again and we kind of just go back inside for a moment, if you could create kind of an image in your mind of this hardworking manager part of you, I'm wondering if you could invite it to like a healing place, maybe a sacred place, maybe a place in nature or whatever feels safe and relaxing. And just maybe imagine that manager part is resting in that sacred healing place. And just relaxing there in your acknowledgement. And then can you offer it, that acknowledgement, through gratitude? Can you take a moment and just be grateful toward this part of yourself that has so much to do? Works so hard, and probably sometimes doesn't feel like it can ever get enough done. Just hold it in your compassion, hold it in your gratitude, and maybe see it relaxing, maybe getting a massage or receiving some healing energy. Just take a moment to really acknowledge this part of you, how hard it works. Thank it. I have one final question for your manager parts, if you're willing to ask internally. Would it be okay, because I know that managers have to regulate emotions in the other parts of the system also, so would it be okay with this manager if we talk with some of your other parts today? Okay, hopefully they acknowledge that that was all right. So I'm going to ask you to kind of shift your body again. Just move your spine. Again, when we shift in the body, we can help to shift these different ego states. So just going to move a little bit. And then I'm going to ask you, do you have a critic? Do you have a part of you that is discerning and critical, maybe a little skeptical? Do you have a part like that? Yes? Okay, oh, hell yes. Yep, all right, good. So critics, can you call that critic part forward? Because we sure would like to understand it better and see if we can also bring it into the state of self. So critical parts, can you just drop in and maybe touch in with that critic and ask them some of the things that it's important to be critical of? Some things they find that maybe you find this part is criticizing. What are some things that this part is critical of? Go ahead and type it in the chat when you're ready. Diet, other people's actions or inactions. Yeah, my daily behaviors, my imperfect behaviors, conversations, not being patient enough. When we feel like we failed in some way, failures. My critical part badgers my manager about getting a task list completed. Very great, that's a great awareness. Not doing enough, yep, anger, things I didn't want to do, that I don't know enough, maybe not smart enough, how I look. The government, absolutely critical of like politicians, right? How much I need to achieve. Yeah, this feelings of maybe not being good enough. Things I did in the past that I might have regrets about. Yeah, critical of my own thoughts, or that I said the wrong thing. Caring too much about what other people think and being critical about that. Not changing fast enough. I know I have this part I call the hurry up and heal part. It just really wants me to be further on the journey than I am. So I get that. My sensitivity. Yeah, sure. Assessing options and getting into analysis, paralysis, trying to judge what's best. Yeah, critical of relationships. Yeah, if I'm not able to control my mind well enough, I can get critical of that. What about in relationship to other people in the world? What else are we critical about? Yeah, you're doing your own spiritual work, doing your readings. Taking other people's opinions on, letting other people beat me down. Anything else besides politicians or politics that we're critical of in the world? Yeah, worrying about what other people think of me. The standards I put on myself. Yeah, critical of my interactions with others over feeling a lack of feeling. Yeah, sure. Anything else, critics, that you find yourselves kind of skeptical of or critical of? Can I just say that social media is one of those things for my critic part, how people behave on social media? Yeah, judging my actions and others. People who don't respond to the pandemic the way that I think they should. Great one. Yeah, critical of humanities, seeming this lack of consciousness. Yeah, I get that. Anything else, critics, that you feel like it's important to tell us that you find yourself being critical of? Okay, so these critic parts, they sometimes get a bad rap, right? Like they bring kind of this negative sort of emotional state, right? Yes, not where I want to be at this stage of my life. Absolutely, another thing that we could be critical of. So these parts also work really hard, but what are they afraid would happen if they stopped being critical? Like, what might happen if this critic part of you, this kind of discerning, analyzing part of you, just didn't exist? Everything would fail. What else might the critic be afraid could happen if it didn't do this job? Just do whatever without any thought put into it? Yeah, it'd be kind of reckless. Go where the wind blows, not reach any goals. What else might happen if we're not critical? We could be unlovable. Life's purpose might not be attained. Nothing would ever change. I might make the wrong decisions. Yeah, I might be attacked. I might be vulnerable. I might definitely get myself into trouble if I don't have that critical mind. Anything else you can think of that the critic might be concerned could happen? That I wouldn't fit into the image I've created for my life. That's a big one. Identity issues. I can't even fathom what my life would be like without a critic. Yeah, we could get stuck. Things could absolutely fall apart. Or just keep up the defense. So it sounds to me like this critical part of us is trying to help us by protecting us. It's a protector part. It's trying to protect us from being taken advantage of, mistreated, not motivated, not fulfilling our purpose, not actually getting anything done. So the critic is a motivator and a protector. And we might not have ever viewed it that way before. So I'm wondering if you could just take a moment to go back inside, and you might get an image of this critic part of yourself. And maybe you want to take it somewhere else that's really safe and healing. Maybe you don't want to take it to the same place where the manager is, or you could if you want, somewhere else where we can just take a moment to appreciate the role of the critic and its psychological function for our system, which is to protect us and to motivate us, to keep us on track, to keep us evolving, to not being hurt or taken advantage of. And just maybe just thank it for doing that job. And if it is working too hard, if you find that this critical mind has been really active lately, it's so important to remind it that you have now heard it, you're present with it, and it can relax a little bit now. It's okay to relax. When you acknowledge it, when you're grateful towards it, that schema can settle down, and that image that we're creating of it resting is neurologically helping that schema to relax. Okay, so we're going to shift again a little bit. Move the body, shift states. We'll do this a few more times. I'm wondering if you have a helper. Do you have like a helper part, like a caretaker part? Most of us in the healing arts do. So I'm wondering if you could call forward your helper, your healer, your caretaker. Are you here, helpers? Okay, great. So maybe just check in with the helper and think about or ask it, what are the things that it does to be helpful in the world? How does it show up in this caring, nurturing, helping, or healing way? What are the actual things that it has to do? And then just type in the chat when you're ready. Anticipate people's needs. Yeah, listen. Mhm. Be compassionate. Try to meet people where they are. Yeah, so my helper helps keep me aware of my own reactions. How else does your helper or caretaker help in the world? Yeah, supporting others. And you could even tell us some of the ways that you do that. Make sure that I have time for myself. Yeah, listening compassionately to other people. Listening with engagement. Yes. Liking others to need, liking others to needed resource. Oh, linking. Yeah, connecting people with resources. Yeah, communicating clearly so it's easy for people. You did it before, you can do it again. So kind of motivating. Cooking meals for people. Yeah, loving people without judgment, even in their darkness. Oh, I like this one, collecting donations. Yeah, we're making charitable contributions, reaching out to friends who struggle, allowing deep universal understanding. Yeah, being a therapist, just the job alone is helping. Recognizing other people's strengths. Oh, house and dog sitting, absolutely. Listening, really, really hearing. Trying to fend off that critic when it's overly judging. Yes, there's a little polarization between these parts that can happen. Checking in on people that I haven't heard from. Great. Anything else you just do to be helpful in the world? Yeah, trying to believe in myself, not judging others when they're in a tough space. Anything else that you do to just be helpful in the world? I mean, it can be something as simple as, holding the door open for someone, if that's something you're committed to, or, turning off the lights in the building to save energy. I mean, there's so many things our helpers do that we might not even be aware of, right? It's just smiling at people. Yeah. Making phone calls, offering kind words, sharing resources, just being polite. Yeah. How about wearing a mask? A lot of us are doing that to be helpful. Donating food to shelters. Yeah. Anything else you nurturers do in the world? Making food for neighbors. Letting people merge into my lane on the highway. Bowing to that one. Shopping for the elderly. Yeah. Anything else you want to tell us about what you have to do for this person managing their life as a helper, someone who's committed to caretaking others? Learning to love everyone just the way they are. Anything and everything that people need. Yeah, so that's a big one. Just helpers are so responsive. We're so on the alert when we're in that state. What can I do to be helpful right now? Watching the grandchildren. Yeah, eating healthy. That's something you're doing to be helpful towards your body. Making sacrifices, sacrificing my own needs for the needs of others. So that's where our helpers can get a little bit tricky and overactive sometimes, right? So that might be a really nice segue into this question. So in relationship to your helping part, does it get tired? Does it feel like it works really hard sometimes? Yeah. Yes. Too hard. Definitely. Yes, if I don't recharge it. Great awareness, Nicole. Yeah, sometimes feeling taken advantage of. Yeah, yeah. Yes, it wants to rest in negative. I get that. I do so much for people that's never enough. Yeah, I understand that feeling too. Yes, yes. So our helper parts can get really active. I want to heal the world and I can't do it on my own. Yeah, it feels like there's an image. Sharon Eckstein has these like cards that she made, and she's also the illustrator of Tom's book. And one of the images is this little boy, and he's got the whole world on his back. And that's what our helpers feel like when they get overburdened with responsibility. So I'm wondering if we could just kind of go inside to be with the helper for a second and just acknowledge it, be grateful towards it in all the ways that it shows up to help. And acknowledging that It might be tired. It might be overworked sometimes. It might even feel a little taken advantage of sometimes. So we know that it needs to be able to rest. It needs to be able to stop helping sometimes. So maybe you can see your helper part, have an image of that, and maybe again, take it to a safe or healing place, and maybe let it receive some of that healing energy or just compassion that you might have for it when you see it in that exhausted state. Sometimes we have to negotiate with our helpers a little bit to just take a step back and not have to work so hard. But the helpers know that they're so important. Maybe you can even ask it, what would the world be like if you didn't exist? If there was no helping energy at all in the world, what would the world be like? You want to type that in the chat? What would it be like? No helping energy. Yeah, it would be sad, dry, dull, empty, dark, heavy, unlivable, chaos, meaningless, evil, selfish, lonely. It would be a descent into darkness, inhuman, painful. So our helpers know this, which is why they work so hard. So again, if you can just tap back into that gratitude towards this part, so grateful, because not only does it do good for the people that we know, but if it didn't exist, the world would be utter chaos, angry, stressful, painful. But sometimes we need to just let it know that it's okay to stop helping and take a rest to recharge. And that's what we're doing, just holding it in gratitude, seeing it in light, or however it can receive its own nurturing. So take a breath with your helper. And then let's move the body again. We're going to shift this time into a more childlike part. Do you have a playful child in there somewhere? Is there a playful child in your field? Heck yeah. Definitely. All right. Not really. Okay, Nicole, that's okay. Of course. Yes. Great. So I'm going to invite these playful child parts to come forward. And if you don't have a lot of access to yours in this moment, that's okay. Maybe it'll come up when the other kids start coming out. So if you tap into that childlike self that was playful, what were some of its favorite childlike playful activities? Like when you were a child, what were some of those favorite playtime activities? Singing. Playful adolescent, yeah. Make believe. We're going to get to that adult pleasure seeker in just a second. Coloring, yeah, getting dirty, spending time outside, painting, art, music, running in the field, playing sports, making forts in the wood, playing with the dogs. Great, Nicole. Arts, making forts, getting dirty in the rain, climbing trees, snowball fights, exploring the woods, just imagining, swimming, sneaking into tiny places, being silly, telling jokes, cannonball jumps into the water, skateboarding. Great. Spying on the parents or the adults. Okay. What else do we do? Riding bikes, playing tricks, designing, traveling, dressing up, lip syncs and dances. Nice. Playing guitar. Yeah. Storytelling, reading books, putting on plays with cousins. Nice. Catching bugs, Especially those fireflies at night, right? Mud pies, going on adventures, and feeding chipmunks, flying kites, jumping rope, watching hermit crabs, putting on little shows, making bracelets, playing with the dog. Great. Hopscotch. Drawing. Patty cake. We had some complex ones, didn't we? Mad hunt, hide and seek. Great. Anything else, playful children, you want to tell us about what your favorite play activities were? Learning to sew, drawing, finger painting, board games, yeah, fishing, twister, camping. Wonderful. Pickup sticks, movies, playing dress up. Cartoons, yeah, watching cartoons. Jacks. Building things, yeah, great. So, playful children, let me ask you a question. You can drop back in for a second. Do you feel like you get enough expression in this person's life? Do you get to be playful in these ways now in this person's adult life? Do you feel like you get enough expression? Some say yes. Great. Wonderful, Betty. Glad to hear it. How about others? Does the inner child, this playful child, get as much expression? Does it get expression in the system? Not as much as I'd hoped. Somewhat. Sometimes, but difficult. Yeah, not enough. Sometimes, but it's lonelier. For the most part, yes. Some, I work with kids but would like more. Great. I'm so glad to hear that so many of you have a playful child that gets to come out and express itself. It's part of Kristen's daily self-care. That's wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Betty says, bringing out the inner child keeps me feeling young. Absolutely. So that's a really nice segue, Betty, into what we're going to ask this playful child next, which is, what would the world be like if your energy didn't exist? If this playful, childlike, innocent energy in us just didn't exist at all in the world, what would it be like? Yeah, drab, grumpy, too serious. Yeah, all work, no play, right? Sad, dull, boring, pessimistic, cynical, dark. Slow and heavy, joyless. I agree. Joyless, exhausting, gray, depressing, flat. Yeah. So this playful child part of us is a really important neural network for us to tap into, because it's bringing joy and lightness and presence and color, meaning into life. So can you take a moment to just be thankful toward that part, maybe smile toward that part, maybe negotiate with it a little bit. If you feel like it doesn't have enough expression, maybe you'd like to kind of talk with it and find ways that you could bring it forward more. And if it feels like it's very active, then just really be grateful towards it. And maybe you can even see this child doing one of its favorite play activities right now. And just be with it and feel that joy in your body of doing that activity. Just kind of imagining that this part is now engaging in one of its favorite playtimes. Breathe with it, smile to it. Maybe negotiate with it. And then we're going to shift the body again. And this time I'd like to speak with a part of you that's a little older. Wiser, we don't know, but maybe a little older. This is an adult pleasure seeker. Do you have an adult pleasure seeker in there somewhere? Can you tap into your adult pleasure seeker? Just kind of feel it and feel into some of the ways that it seeks pleasure for you. So whenever you're ready, adult pleasure seekers, please tell me how you bring pleasure into this person's life. Healthy or unhealthy, doesn't matter. Pleasure. Sit by fire, massage, craft cocktails, making stained glass painting, travel, cooking, hiking, eating edibles, meditate, good food, holding hands, being in nature, doing yoga, poetry, walking, Reiki, meal prep, good cup of coffee, sensuality, taking walks. Yeah, you don't have to hold anything back here, man. If it's pleasure, it's pleasure. No judgment here. Luxurious bath, watching the sunset. What else do we do, adult pleasure seekers? Being in the company of others. Yeah, absolutely. Going to the ocean, swimming in the ocean, walking in the woods, joking with the grandsons. Yeah, binging some Netflix. Being loved, skinny dipping. What else, adult pleasure seekers, do you do to seek pleasure for this person? Yeah, having deep conversations with friends and like-minded people. Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah, practicing our heart coherence, eating chocolate. Ooh, good dark chocolate. Taking care of loved ones, embraces. Yeah, sleeping in, making special meals. Yes, giving massages. Oh, buying flowers for myself. I love that. Hugs, journaling. You can say things like wine and bacon and sex. Like, it's okay. You can say all those things. Meditating. Definitely. Anything else, adult pleasure seekers? Mine is really missing travel right now. Okay, so this part of us that seeks pleasure, yes, travel, exploring. Go ahead. If there's anything else you want to say, we're wide open to hear it. Meeting new people. Yeah, I love that too. Anything else? Okay. So these parts, these adult pleasure seekers, especially in spiritual communities, are kind of like the critics in the way that they often get a bad rap, or the critic will really judge this pleasure seeker because it doesn't, wine might not align with my spiritual values, or talking about sex or eating meat or something like that, right? Like those things can be not so welcome. So we often try to, push this part aside. So I really want to ask this part of you the same question we've asked a few others. What would life be like if there was no impulse to seek enjoyment, pleasure, or relief? If there was no impulse to do that at all, if this part didn't exist, what would life be like? It would be dry and sad and boring and full of anger and dull, miserable, restrictive, yeah, pleasureless, tasteless, lame, predictable, and routine. Yes, like robotic, right? One-dimensional. Yeah, unmotivating. No reward, right? Mundane. Anything else you want to say about what it would be like without you, pleasure seeker? It would be restricted. No growth. So again, this part of us, yeah, lifeless, depressing, Could feel a little safer, maybe. Wouldn't have any new experiences. So true. All of this. So again, this part of you is trying to help by bringing color and motivation and connection into our lives. It's really a helping part, and it's a good part as long as it's in balance. So maybe you can just check in with your pleasure seeker, just kind of see what your relationship is to it in daily life. Does it have enough expression? Is it bringing enough relief and satisfaction, pleasure into your world? Or has it been repressed in some way and it doesn't have full expression? And maybe it needs a little bit more to bring more of that color and meaning and connection into life. Yeah, some are a little repressed. And it's okay. We just have to get to know this aspect of ourselves is a good part of us. It is an essential part of us. It's all about balance. So maybe you could see in your mind's eye this pleasure-seeking aspect of yourself, this part of you, receiving pleasure in one of its favorite ways to do that. No judgment, no restriction. Whatever brings it deep satisfaction. Just imagine receiving that in this moment. And breathe with this part. And notice if there's any conflict with your own critic part, or if you're able to keep them separate right now, which is what we want. So the last part of you that I'd like to invite into sharing today is another kind of seeker, but this part I'm going to call the seeker of the way. So you can just stay inside with your eyes closed for a moment and see if you can call forward. You might want to shift your body subtly again, but call forward the seeker of the way. What is my fully embodied experience of myself when I seek the way? And what do I seek when I seek the way? So please tell me, seekers, what do you seek when you seek the way? Peace, freedom, wholeness, understanding, truth, joy, knowledge, raising consciousness, being the best version of myself, lightness, balance, ease, the correct way. Like, what's the highest way? Health, groundedness, love, enlightenment, and a way out of suffering. The union of my little self with my big self, my dharma, connection. What do we seek when we seek the way? Connection, clarity. Truth. Sometimes I put a capital T on that kind of truth. Knowingness, clarity, happiness, acceptance, compassion, yes. To end suffering. Understanding. Tolerance. Yeah, patience, that's a big one, isn't it? Knowledge, wisdom, acceptance. Belief in myself. Yeah, confidence, right? Kindness. Anything else you seek when you seek the way? Benevolence. So So if you're to close your eyes and drop back in, the seeker of the way is like one side of a coin. The other side is what I'm going to call the non-seeker. This is the aspect of you that doesn't need to seek understanding or peace or love or connection, because it already is those things. It already is all it could ever seek. Can you breathe in and out and expand your internal connection to the non-seeker, the one that already is that which you seek? You may find that as you breathe into this space with your eyes closed, that your body might relax, or it might naturally come into a more meditative posture. Just keep breathing into that space of the one that doesn't need to seek. And I'm going to invite you to stay internal now. You don't have to come out and type in the chat anymore. But I'll ask you just internally, how do you feel in the space of the non-seeker? And again, you can just stay inside, and I'll just reflect back what I've heard groups say for the last 10 years. A lot of people report feeling a sense of calm, ease, restfulness. So whatever it is that you're feeling when you identify with the one that doesn't need to seek, it already is. Notice how big you feel in this space. Is there any boundary at all? And if there is a boundary, can you breathe and expand beyond it? When we feel this sense of peace and expansive awareness, this is what we call the big mind aspect of the self. If you find yourself distracted, just remember that thing that your seeker of the way really seeks. Maybe it's understanding. And then just remember that there is an aspect of yourself that already is understanding. I'm just going to keep breathing and seeing if we can connect more deeply to this space of the big mind. This vast presence. It's always calm and clear. And from this big mind state, if you kind of look back on your system of parts, all the parts we talked with today that are now resting in their own individual places, How do they look to you from this place? And again, just answer it for yourself internally. People often report that they look small, or like they're working really hard, like they're really trying. Sometimes they look a little distant or insignificant. And how do you feel towards these parts when you look at them from this place of big mind? Again, often people report feeling a sense of compassion, tenderness, love, or gratitude towards them. So I'd invite you to breathe into that feeling of the big heart. This loving feeling towards these aspects of your own self that try so hard, work so hard to complete their very good function. Though sometimes they work too hard, or sometimes they get pushed out and don't get any space at all. Looking at them with the loving eyes of big heart from the somewhat separate awareness of big mind. So from this place of self, I'm curious if there's anything that you, as the big mind, big heart, would like to say to these parts of yourself. And again, just internally. What would you say to them? What do they need to hear from you or be reminded of? Some things I often hear is people just want to say thank you to them, or I love you, or it's going to be okay. So just take the next moment or two to just be with your system of parts from this calm, spacious, compassionate state of self, in whatever way feels right. If you'd like to call in some spiritual energy or spiritual guides to be present in this moment, you're welcome to do that also. To just rest in this awareness and lovingly be with all parts of you in a curious, accepting, and compassionate way. And when this feels complete for you, You can simply bring your palms together at the heart in prayer and just take a moment to bow to your own system of parts. Maybe you learned something about them today that'll help you to be in more loving relationship with yourself, more awareness, acceptance, and compassion as you move through your life. Thank you so much for your openness to practicing something so different with me today. In yoga, we close with saying the word namaste, which in this framework would simply mean that because I have touched that place of self, that big mind and big heart in myself, that light of awareness that exists in me, I know that it also must exist in you. So with namaste, I bow to that higher self within each one of you, but I also bow to the individual aspects, your parts that work so hard to be so good in this world. I bow to the whole of you. Namaste. So you might like to rub your palms together, kind of create some heat and stimulation in the hands and in the nerves of the palms, and then maybe place them over your eyes or face and just kind of brush over the surface of your arms and legs, just kind of bringing awareness back into the body. And as you're doing that, think about, this big mind, big heart aspect of yourself coming back into form, like being in your body. This is who you are. This is your identity now. Okay, so we did it. We did it. You did your first big mind, big heart exercise. And we have some time left, so I would sure love to have some dialogue about it and hear from you what your experience was. I'm so glad you thought it was freaking awesome. Thank you. Really glad to hear that. I do too. I love this technique so much. But yeah, maybe we can just unmute folks and we can actually have some real dialogue for a few minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
People can unmute themselves if they want to speak. Maybe that works well, I guess. Kyle, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, that was just deeply healing. I had to lie down for a minute because it was good when we went into the place of just like the wholeness. It felt really, really good.
Wow. Sometimes I want to leave people there forever,
I could probably stay there. I could use a whole day there, especially with the consciousness of all the individual parts. It's cool to take a step back and look at it from the higher self and just like kind of forgive. And it was a really profound practice and I appreciate it. It's great.
That wholeness piece, that piece of being with ourselves in a fully embodied way, but having that awareness that is that higher perspective, right? It is that more center of consciousness. And just being in that place and being with the ego self simultaneously from that place is healing and transformative. So healing and transformative. And I'm curious if you were able to feel yourself kind of coming into coherence when we were in that state also. I'm wondering if anyone wants to maybe speak to that.
Joe, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, that definitely was next level for me, especially because when you got to the child portion, it made me have a realization that I have not allowed that part of myself a lot of its expression. And I also imagined each one of myself sitting around a fire and in meditation pose, and then the higher, the big self standing and kind of watching and looking over and just being like, okay, I see you all now. And and for the first time, I think I really have a deep sense of gratitude and understanding for that, all those aspects. So that was next level phenomenal for me. And I'm super grateful for that. So thank you so much. That was great.
I love that imagery of having all the parts coming together in a circle around the fire. And, you know, in the Vedic traditions, fire represents spirit. It is living spirit itself. It's not like a representation of it. It's considered to be spirit itself, right? So I love that you had this coming together of the wholeness, where all the parts could see each other, you know, because we have these parts, like say the adult pleasure seeker and the critic, that can be in conflict with each other, right?
Totally, yeah.
And so when they come together in the circle and they see each other's function, it's like, oh, I see, critic, you're good because you're trying to protect. And oh, pleasure seeker, okay, you're good because you're trying to bring color and meaning and connection into life. So when the parts can see each other, what's happening in the neural networks is that we're creating new neural pathways in the brain that's actually, it is literally biologically healing.
And it's true, because I think for the first time was able to appreciate some of the pieces of myself that normally I am very, very internally, verbally violent towards. I don't like that person side, especially lately. So it was really interesting to be able to see it from a totally different perspective, almost as if a father would be to a child or a mother would be to a child. And it was very much a sense of like, even after I pictured all of myself sitting around the fire together, there was a moment right at the end where it's like we all kind of just huddled up and went head to head, and just like this circle is the one piece, you know. That was super cool. That was very profound for me.
The hair is standing up on my arms right now.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I definitely got some goosies.
Yeah, that's it though. That's it. It's that it is an experience. It's such a simple way to experience our inner wholeness.
Yeah.
To be aware of these different schemas all at one time, this whole neural networks of activity, and like being able to be with them from that place of consciousness that can hold them in awareness and understanding and compassion simultaneously.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. That was phenomenal. Kyle, looks like Betty's down to say something, just so you know.
Yeah, great. Please.
I think Kyle's has to unmute Betty.
Okay. I'm going to take a little sip. And I'll just say, you know, while you're kind of making that transition, you know, not everyone's first experience with this practice is as deep as yours was, right? And some people might have parts that are kind of protective of their system that might not let them go in that deep also. So I just want to say that whatever your experience was today, it's okay. Just, you know, thanks for being here. Just kind of hold that in curiosity. Try not to let those critics maybe make it mean something or judge too harshly if you didn't have the kind of experience that others are reporting they had. So just know that whatever it is, it's okay. And our work is just to continue to be aware of what's happening in the field and to turn towards that curiously with acceptance and compassion, whatever it is. You have a good meditation, you have a bad meditation. Okay, whatever. This was an experience and this was an experience. And both experiences have happened. Both have come to pass. Don't have to really make meaning about either one of them, right? So that's just a little added side note in case you didn't have like a major awakening this morning, right? All right. Who wanted to share next?
I think Betty wanted to. Oh, Angela. Go ahead, Angela.
Hi, thank you very much. I've actually been doing some of this work for a couple of years with my therapist. But we do. Why can't I see you? I want to see.
Oh, there. Are you there? Oh, we lost your volume, Betty. Did you get muted? Oh, so maybe one of our admins, our mods, can unmute her again. She got muted.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you very much. I was saying, I've done this some of this work with my therapist for a few years now, but we've never done it that in depth because we do lots and lots of different things. I work mostly with the child and the critic and a defensive part. I also use I don't even know where everything comes from. I'm assuming the resources also come from this work, and the adult nurturing self, the adult protective self, is that this work? Yeah. And so they're actually part of my everyday meditation. I bring them in. But they've morphed on like a life of their own. They're kind of different than those three. There's still three of them, but you know, I don't know. It's very interesting. But I was really happy to go so much deeper into this, like because we just do like little pieces here and there, and this is great. But you know, this is definitely my path, and I was interested in. I was actually wanting to know more about how you're bringing the yoga aspect into, you know, the yoga mindset, because I was looking at the course before. I actually am a yoga teacher, and I am working towards my yoga therapy, but I haven't. I'm saving up the money. I haven't actually enrolled yet. And yeah, my future is, my dream is, you know, and I have a bachelor's in psychology, you know, so I don't want to go to grad school because I don't want the debt. And I feel like, you know, I've got really like 20 years as a patient and a practitioner, you know, and a yoga teacher. And I just have all this stuff. I think I could really, you know, with a few more steps, I think I could really do like some kind of yoga therapy, life coach, you know, practice. And this is my goal. But I would really like to know, like, because I feel like we did a lot of the part, you know, this stuff, but I feel like we didn't do a whole lot with the yoga. So I would love if you could just briefly tell me about the course, about mindset coaching, and you know, maybe it's something I want to look into alongside the yoga therapy, or I mean, I might not be able to afford both, but I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
I really love hearing this really creative, curious part of you, like trying to figure out what is the way, where, if I have these resources, where's the best place that I can put those resources? That is a wonderful part of you, the seeker part, you know, the seeker of education.
I just found her. She's very new.
Love it. Well, welcome to your consciousness education seeker. And thanks for asking about the program and the contents of the book. So if you, the book is like $7.99, I think, the ebook on Amazon, and the print book is like less than $17. So, I mean, I highly encourage you just to pick up a copy of the book. And that is the foundation for how I outline the basic training. So the way that I've organized this program is that, you know, the book kind of gives you the outline of the philosophy. Starts with classical yoga and tantric worldview kind of philosophy, models of the mind, Vedic and Buddhist models of the mind. And then we see how that overlaps with the internal family systems model, which is actually what I wrote my master's thesis on, was the integration of these two models of consciousness. So this is kind of a development, you know, 10 years later out of my own practice. So I had this hypothesis, right? And then I put it into practice for a decade. Then I wrote a book about it. And so what we do is we blend, first we kind of understand how the two philosophies fit together. And then we see which ego state or which part is most active, which neural network, right, is the one that is active or the one that's problematic kind of in the moment when the client comes in. And so we do a little bit of dialoguing with that. So I teach some basic coaching skills like active and reflective listening, you know, unconditional positive regard, the work of Carl Rogers, and client-centered therapy. I bring a heavy focus of that, like and I heard so many of you talk about listening with intention, right? So that's something that I know that this group is really understands. So I teach some of that kind of listening. And then with the parts language, we learn how to reframe things in this parts language. So it's like, okay, so it sounds like there's this part of you that's really excited about education right now. And what that does is it helps the client to see that this is just one aspect of who they are, not the whole of who they are. So just getting that distance gives them a little bit more access to this center energy, right? And then whatever it is that we find through the dialogue, you know, we have some process to kind of help shift or challenge belief, or you know, provide comfort and reassurance to those parts. And then we see, does this part seem like it has too much energy, like anger? Like if there's a really strong anger charge to the system, that would be an excess of energy. Or we look and we see if the part is depleted, and if we need to connect it to more energy, right? And we use yoga therapy approaches, these strategies are called Longana and Brahmana. So Longana means to reduce, Brahmana means to increase. And so depending on what the system, the whole system is needing, and the parts information gives us good clues to that, then we know which kind of practice to give at the end. So I give a lot of flexibility to the coaches. Sometimes it'll be, 15 minutes of talk coaching, and it'll be, 45 minutes on the mat. Sometimes it might be 45 minutes doing the talk, and it might be 15 minutes on the mat. It's like we just really want to flow with that, but we always want to have a combination of both, because we know that these neural networks, these schemas, are fully embodied. So when we work with people, in the psychological realm, in the realm of mental thought and emotion, we have to also work with the body to really integrate and to really transform and heal. So that's what I'm teaching right now, and it's really exciting, and I'd love to have you there. And again, the book, unfortunately right now, is only on Amazon, but you can get it there. And I would love, this is Tom Holmes's book, Parts Work, that some of you asked about earlier. And I said Sharon's drawings because it's an illustrated guide to your inner life, and she really just brings these parts kind of alive. Oh yeah, here's the little Tommy I was telling you about, the boy with the world on his shoulders. So I mean, it just, having the imagery really helps us to connect mentally to the schemas. So I find the work to be not just the most profound transformational work I've ever done for myself personally and the clients that I work with, but it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. So I'm so grateful. Thank you for coming on and spending time with us. And I'm actually excited to tell her, she's my therapist. She's been my biggest cheerleader through all this idea. And if she knows that this has come into my life, like a way to incorporate some of the work that I've done with her with my plans for yoga therapy, I think she's going to be excited. So I'm excited to tell her. Thank you very much.
I think you'll find my programs to be way less expensive than even the internal family systems level 1 training.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know. I'm trying to avoid grad school. Like I just don't want the debt. I feel like I could do it a different way, a little cheaper. So, but thank you very much. And I will get the book for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I want to be mindful of the time, unless there's anyone else kind of chomping at the bit to say some words here before we go. I'm going to type in the chat one last time. I'll put my contact info back in there, maybe to try to take out a couple of those wonky, weird spaces. No, can't do that. Everyone. Okay, there we go.
Beautiful.
So sanghayoga.com is my yoga school institution. And so I run monthly collective healing events online that are on donation. We have a different focus each month. Next one is going to be on pain science. And that will be, I think, I want to say the 26th maybe of this month. And then of course in October, towards the end of October, I'm going to do something around managing fear and anxiety, like a week before the election. So that's happening. And then, yeah, the book, you can find the book and you can find information about the training. The second link there, yogamindsetcoaching.com. I do have free meditations on Insight Timer, free yoga classes on Yoga International, content on YouTube. And I kind of use Instagram as my personal blog platform. So keep in touch, please. Love to see you again.
Karina, that was phenomenal. I'm going to take over for Kyle. Kyle had to step out. So thank you so much for everything. If anybody else has anything else to say, just let me know and I'll unmute you. But if not, we're going to have Kristen do our closing statement. And Karina, again, that was next level for me. I don't know about everybody else, but I've never dived into my separate selves like that. And to be able to make them their own person and be able to witness them as a father figure towards them has literally been transformative today. Game changer.
Game changer. Yeah, it changed my life 20 years ago, so I get it.
Absolutely great. So thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to hand it over to Kristen. She can, if no one else has anything else to say, if there's anything you have to say, Karina, before we get going.
No, just appreciate you all so much, the work that you're doing, not in consciousness for the whole planet. Just really grateful to be connected to this group of people. So keep it up.
Thank you. So grateful for you. Go ahead, Kristen. I'll unmute you. Hold on a minute.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karina. That was really fantastic. I've done a lot of work with like archetypes and different patterns of energy, but I've never done any type of process where I actually invited them all in at once. So that was really cool. That was definitely something new and awesome, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. And what we do now with all of that, that energy and that experience that we just had is we dedicate the merit of what was generated to all of those who are awakening at this precious time. May our efforts to better ourselves help shift planetary consciousness from fear into love. May this energy ripple out into the world, awaken those with closed hearts, illuminate closed minds, and inspire all to live within the presence of compassion and generosity.
Amen. Aho ashe. Love
Yes,
it.
I love it. Everybody, thank you so much, Karina.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week this week, and everything. Enjoy the rest of the
Have a
weekend.
great day. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you. Much love, fam.